so for being our host today, and for the community members for preparing our food, and bear with me today. I got a cold, so I went to IHS yesterday and got some remedies, but I'm still hacking up. So, Rich, and and I will call the meeting to order. It is 9:22. I gave some SEMA to community member Michael Swan to do our invocation today. So, Rich. Okay, next up is roll call. Alan, please do roll call. We have a quorum. Be good. Next up is review and approve of the agenda. Okay, we're gonna add Alan's report and some of the letters that he proposed to, Sandy Lake, Prairie Island, and referendum and interpretation 1109. Also, the one thing I wanted to add was, just that I know Nick approached me and talked about the Twin Cities, I think the $1 million fund, and also the drop-in center. I wanted to say, Nick. Okay. Does anybody else have anything to say, that wanted to add to the agenda? All right, a motion to approve the agenda for today. Motion by Alan Roy, second by, second by Raymond. All in favor? Motion passes. Review and approve the meeting minutes for 1/24/20 and 1/2/14/20. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes for those 2 dates? Motion by Umsey. Second by Allen. All in favor? Motion carries. Reports. First one is myself, and I have a few things that kind of went on between last meeting. Is one of them is I was down in St. Paul last Monday with Congresswoman Betty McCollum, and she wanted to have a lot of the state commissioners and myself and other tribal leaders to show up, but I was the only tribal leader that showed up about FY21 and appropriations for some of the um, the DNR stuff. And I know one of the things that she wanted me to discuss was some of the sulfate levels that we talked about in MIAC, and about our wild rice, and some of the stuff. I kind of veered off course, and I started talking about some of the pesticide stuff. So I brought that up in that testimony, and I talked about line 3, of course, and so this week we're going to submit some more stuff to Betty McCollum's office this week too. So that was one good thing that I was glad I went down there and got to do that. So felt good. I met with our education department this week too, and I met with Dana Goodwin and our director Ron Buckanaga, and we talked about our immersion school. This is one of the things I'm really kind of adamant about, is to bring back and get our children to start learning our language again. And this is one of my priorities. So this is something that I really want to push hard on getting our school open. And we had put a lot of names out there, and if anybody from the community would like to attend our meetings, and I know Ron and Dana is going to put together stakeholders, and we're gonna try to really move forward, because I think we're going to have some space up in Adawash by when everybody moves from the complex over to the new behavioral health building. That we were just talking and just looking at how we could picture this in the future for ourselves from 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 8 years from now, is where we're going to be at, and these were some of the things that I really, really care about in my heart, that our kids need to know our language. So something I'm really going to push forward. So of course, I was out in DC a few weeks ago, out at National Congress of American Indians, and there again we were out there, and we're networking and talking to fellow tribes on energy. I know we went and met with the David Frost, the tribal liaison from the Department of Energy, and he gave us a lot of information on where we could go to and apply for monies and grants and loans and whatnot to start our renewable energy program. And also what was really good out there too is to see the awards of Peggy Flanagan getting awarded as one of our leaders across the country. So I was very positive to attend that award ceremony for her too. So it was good. She really had a good speech, and and she talked about her father, and that was kind of really moving out there, and it was good to hear that, and those quotes that she was talking about her dad. So I felt really good attending that awards banquet for her, and I thought it was like really good for all of us back home here that she represents us too. So that's kind of my report. So thank you, and be good. So I think next up is Alan. Alan had some stuff letters he wanted to talk about. So be good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To open with, for the finances, I do have an engagement letter, Mr. Chairman, from Brady Martz. This is for the White Earth Enterprises LLC. This is part of their annual audit. And so I do need to get this letter approved today so we can audit that program. With that being said, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for this letter to be approved to do the audit of enterprises. This was handed to me by Scott Omlid. Scott? Yeah, this is the only copy we have right now. Okay, so, yeah. We can make more copies of this, right? Okay. And could you, Scott, could you just talk through the letter? That way everyone has a clear understanding. Just talk through the letter.
This is a letter from Brady Martz, our auditors, and they are doing the audit of, this is the one for congregate housing. And every time when they do the audit, they come out and say what their responsibilities and their obligations and what the fee is, and telling us what our obligations are to participate and identify to them if we know of any possible fraud or illegalities, things of that nature. So it's a form letter that comes out every year that relates to the audit to the particular location. And this is the White Earth congregate housing one. Yeah, yeah, my mistake. It is White Earth. It's White Earth Enterprises. Yeah.
Okay. So while he's doing that, Mr. Chair, I'll just continue. The other thing that I know that for finances, for key updates is that we've had several discussions related to DHS and that over $14 million take back. There has been a discussion around that. The legal team has spoken to the CMS and with the state of Minnesota. We expect them to come up with further updates as they move along. Right now, what's being communicated is that the CMS is, its most basic terms, CMS wants its payment from the state, right? Now, they're going to get their money from the state, but the question is whether the state is going to ask for its money from the tribe. Now, they're obligated to ask for those funds from the tribe by law. And so right now, the legal team is working with them to say that, look, you guys gave us the wrong advice, and we feel we do not have to pay you anything. And so that's the state where we're at. I don't see it getting figured out anytime soon. I know it's been the position of White Earth to that we didn't do anything wrong, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure those funds are available to our people. That's a lot of money we're talking about. It's something that we're watching closely. The other thing for finances, key update is next week on TBIC, Tribal Interior Budget Council, Mr. Mike LaRock is going to be heading out to Washington, and he is going to sit in on some of the public safety and justice subcommittees. And so make sure that our tribes are being advocated for. White Earth represents the region, so we've got a lot of work to do. So he'll be heading out there. Another financial update is that there was, and you'll see it in the minutes that have been approved, there's discussion around casino finances related to hotel improvements. There's talk about a number of updates. And so we've requested that the team, the casino team, put together a public presentation for band members to get informed of that. And so folks can expect to see that to come forward. And while we were out, and the chairman had mentioned Washington, D.C., I know a lot of the folks, the past month has been very busy, and at the last MCT meeting in Mahnomen, the Senate was recognized and supported for federal recognition by the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. And White Earth Nation is a strong supporter and ally to our relatives in Sandy Lake. We had advocated for this outcome for a very long time, and it's something that we support. And while we were out in Washington, D.C., we made tremendous progress, as the chairman had stated. One of the purposes was to attend National Congress of American Indians. We also met with Colin Peterson, Tina Smith, Amy Klobuchar, and the Department of Energy. The White House also provided a tour of the West Wing. The band, we also visited the Department of Interior, which the White House helped facilitate the meeting on such short notice. We had been sending requests to Interior to meet with them. They wouldn't schedule it, but the Tyler Fish, who's the tribal liaison in the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, was able to get us a meeting with the Interior. And so while I was there, we talked about renewable energy. We also talked about interpretation 1109, and we talked about the fact that it prevents people from filing petitions against their tribal government and that it's unconstitutional. I had explained that to the Interior Department, and they said that they're requesting a letter from White Earth to submit to them. Basically, the way I told it was, if the Minnesota Chippewa tribe wishes to prevent the people from introducing resolutions via petition or referendum, then the Minnesota Chippewa tribe must amend the Constitution. They just can't pick things out of the Constitution and take your rights away. And so the Interior, the folks that I spoke with, as well as the council, legal counsel, they agreed with me. So we are going to send a letter to hopefully get a Frank Biebel to help us draft a letter. We'll send it out to the U.S. Department of Interior, and then they'll issue something similar to the 2015 Washburn letter, right? That's the one regarding Irma and all that. So we can probably expect a Washburn letter type coming back to White Earth, and basically to the Minnesota Chippewa tribe, letting them know that what they're doing with that interpretation is unconstitutional and is against the law. So now you go ahead and take that with that 1109, and you take that to I-80, you take that to all those other interpretations, all right? This is just the start. This is a beginning. This is something White Earth feels very passionate about, that we want to empower the people to be able to have their voices heard. We also, I do want to state this for the record, that our visits have been productive as we have been focused on energy independence for our nation. And while we may not all agree with national politics, White Earth will always put its members' interests first, from the Minnesota Chippewa tribe to Congress and all the way to the White House. White Earth engages in government-to-government dialogue on a variety of issues that we agree on to issues we don't. We will always press our federal counterparts to uphold their trust responsibility. That is the basis of every engagement, improving the lives of our members. And so I remember not too long ago that we didn't have this level of federal engagement. However, through hard work and determination, and with the leadership on this RBC, everyone sitting up here, we've earned the respect of Congress, we've earned the respect of the executive branch and our local legislators. That's called sovereignty. And the duty of our nation is to exercise our inherent unassailable sovereignty with caution, so that 7 generations will benefit from our relationships and our decisions. We do have limited resources, and I do have a number of letters here I will go through, Mr. Chair. The first one is a letter, and it's in your packet, and I believe it was on the table back there for folks that want to listen in. We did get a request, Mr. Chairman, from Representative Colin Peterson, and so I submit this to the RBC for approval today, and I'll read it out loud. It pertains to Sandy Lake. This is a letter to Colin Peterson. Mr. Peterson, your continued support for White Earth Nation and its members is much appreciated. We are requesting a federal recognition bill for the Sandy Lake Band of Mississippi Chippewa pursuant to Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Resolution 6420, as enacted by the Tribal Executive Committee effective January 31st, 2020 in Mahnomen, Minnesota. Attached is proposed language for you to consider. Resolution 6420 states that the tribe, quote, is in full support of the efforts of the non-removable Sandy Lake Band of Mississippi Chippewa, and hereby presents this resolution of support as the Sandy Lake Band of Mississippi Chippewa continue their efforts to have their federal status restored. The non-removable Sandy Lake Band of Mississippi Chippewa are descendants of the Chippewa that entered into the treaties of 1825, 1826, 1837, 1847, 1854, 1855, 1863, 1864, 1867, with the United States, and whose history as an independent, separate, and distinct tribe has spanned centuries. The request for a federal recognition bill would need to address two major components. First, their historical homelands that are currently held in Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Trust status would need to transfer these lands directly to the Sandy Lake Band of Mississippi Chippewa for its historical significance and for the band's future prosperity. Furthermore, the original exterior boundaries would need to be reestablished for the benefit of the band. Second, to ensure the band's success and to expedite their recognition, the Sandy Lake Band of Mississippi Chippewa should be added as a band of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. We as a sovereign nation humbly endorse this message to support our relatives at Sandy Lake, and it carries the full might of the White Earth Nation. The second letter here, Mr. Chairman, and I'm not asking for this one to be approved today, Mr. Chair, just for background on what's going on in Minnesota. This relates to the Prairie Island Indian Community Land Claim Settlement Act. It's a letter to some committee members in Congress. States that the White Earth Band writes to support HR 4752, the Prairie Island Indian Community Land Claim Settlement Act, as it was introduced. White Earth has communicated and conversed with the Prairie Island Indian community leadership and believes it is essential for the Prairie Island Indian community to relocate with the ability to conduct gaming, as it is vital for their survival. Prairie Island and its ancestors have lived in what is now Minnesota for generations. However, Prairie Island's existing reservation, located on an island along the Mississippi River, is threatened by the operation of Lock Dam Number 3, which has caused a permanent inundation and ongoing overbank flooding of portions of Prairie Island's lands. The livelihood and safety of Prairie Island members and community is furthermore threatened by the operation of the Prairie Island Nuclear Generating Plant, which is approximately 600 yards from their reservation. No other tribal community in the country is closer to a nuclear plant or its nuclear waste. A tragic accident could happen at any time. Additionally, there's only one public access road on and off Prairie Island, which is frequently blocked by rail traffic, leading to significant public safety concerns. These threats that the Prairie Island Indian community faces by living in their current location need to be taken seriously. Each year, the water from overbank flooding rises and has been even flooded parts of the casino. The Prairie Island is unable to expand housing for its community members on the island. There's nowhere to go. Acquired land near congressional confirmation of this land has, in addition to Prairie Island's reservation land base, the same legal status as the rest of their reservation, would undoubtedly ensure the long-term safety and security of the Prairie Island Indian community and its members. It would be inappropriate to deny an Indian tribe the ability to be safe and access prosperity. White Earth is aware that other tribal governments are in opposition to Prairie Island's position, requesting that the bill be amended to prohibit gaming activity. White Earth asserts that little credence should be given to those in opposition because no other tribe in the United States is similarly situated as Prairie Island. Grand Portage, Mille Lacs, and Red Lake are all Ojibwe nations, culturally distinct from Minnesota's Dakota communities. The land in question is not Ojibwe territory, and therefore the Ojibwe nations should not interfere with the rights and inherent sovereignty of a Dakota community to seek safety and longevity for its membership. Moreover, there should be no deference to the opposition from Shakopee, Mdewakanton Sioux community, as there is no evidence to support the contention that Prairie Island's relocation will impact the SMMC's gaming operations. The benefits of allowing Prairie Island to relocate with the ability to conduct gaming simply outweigh any opposition to relocation. We should not be hindering Prairie Island's growth and right to safety. White Earth does not view Prairie Island's request as off-reservation casino shopping, and we believe it will not bring disruption into Minnesota as the opponents allege. This is the effort of a tribe that was placed through no fault of its own by the federal government in an unprecedented and highly dangerous situation. The federal government should proceed with great humility when addressing this issue, as Prairie Island would not be in this position but for the actions of the federal government. The White Earth Nation supports HR 4752 as it was introduced and asks that the House Natural Resources Committee and the Indigenous Peoples Subcommittee ensure that it receives a hearing and be moved out of committee as quickly as possible. Moving along, Mr. Chairman. There is, this is part of the uh, referendum discussion. There is these are just draft resolutions related to medical marijuana and the 1941 blood roll. These are not ready for approval. They're not being considered for approval. This is just something I want to enter into the record that for the council to consider as we move forward. Um, I was hoping that Gordy Bellinger, are you here? Gordy's not here. Okay. Gordy was going to present a little bit more on the benefits of medical marijuana, but he's not available. So we'll just have to schedule that for another time. Um, and then the final letter here, Mr. Chairman, is for the MCT April meeting. This one I would be seeking approval for today. Um, I'll read it. It's a letter to the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe. Dear President Chavers and Executive Director Gary Frazier, the White Earth Band of Ojibwe requests the following issues added to the agenda for the Tribal Executive Committee meeting scheduled for May 1st, 2020 at the Black Bear Casino. One is the Department of Interior, interpretation number 1109, and that we are going to continue to request that the MCT repeals interpretation number 1109 as it's unconstitutional, and to discuss Article 15, manner of review. The second thing would be the Prairie Island Indian Community Federal Land Bill, and to see the attached letter and to request a letter of support from for the Prairie Island community. Then there's also a letter here as well, Sandy Lake Band and Mississippi Chippewa Federal Recognition Bill. Again, the letter and then a letter of support from the MCT. And then there's the referendum discussion. But I also want to point out that some folks have brought to my attention the legality of these enrollment moratoriums issued by the Mille Lacs Band. And so that's something that I think we should have a discussion on. I'm not asking for a decision or anything, just a discussion. And then transfer financial request. And they have not sent us any documentation. Is that right, Catherine? They have not sent us any of the requested financial documents. And they said that's within your purview to request those documents. And they're going to consider it as. So, and then I'd also like to request that we have a line 3 opposition to the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe, Mr. Chairman, to request an actual resolution to the MCT, and that we as a sovereign nation humbly endorse this request to support our members, and it carries the full weight, full nation. Now, I don't expect this to get approved today. I want to give you guys some time to think about it. But that being said, hopefully you get it approved before the next regular meeting, as I am leaving to Africa. I do have a letter here that I do need approved today. So I just have 2 letters I'd like to get approved today. This is for my service obligation, Mr. Chair. On February 22nd, as the United States Army Reservist, I received notice of annual training obligation that requires my participation, which is scheduled from March 1st through April 10th. A copy of the notice has been furnished to Human Resources for processing related to veterans. However, any changes will be communicated. Army does change things at the last minute all the time. But as a reservist, I am elected to participate in its assistance. And for White Earth at this meeting, I am requesting an excused absence from the RBC for the duration of my service obligation, which is only scheduled for me to miss next month's regular meeting. I should be back after that, and I should not miss any more meetings. And for the MCT, based upon the notice received, the service obligation is not scheduled to interrupt any scheduled meetings. The MCT Constitution covers committee person absences and provides direction related to extended absences. And what I mean by that specifically is if I do not have if I miss 2 consecutive meetings under the Constitution and they're not excused, then I'm violating the Constitution, okay? All Reservation Business Committee policies and procedures remain in effect during this period. Finances will be managed by the CFO and record keeping will be managed by the executive coordinator. I understand that questions will be brought forward from tribal members as I am an elected official. To briefly answer these questions, I will be conducting a routine training mission in Africa that supports the Army Reserve and its mission and its soldiers. I will be generally unavailable during the service obligation, um, but I will have Wi-Fi access over there, I've been told. But to avoid some of the information being hacked, as I received several phone calls from Morocco yesterday. Somebody got my phone number, I don't know how. They're setting up a device for me. If you need my signature or anything, Mr. Chair, I will be able to sign documents. It's just the IT setting up a secure device, VPN, encryption, and all that, so our stuff will not be compromised. And finally, I know that White Earth Nation has several veterans and service members and families that make deep sacrifices each day for the defense of our nations. And I know that we will continue to honor their service and to care for their loved ones when service obligations arise. Our tribal members serve at much higher rates than any other group in the United States, and supporting their service and sacrifice aligns with our culture, traditions, and Anishinaabe Zichigewin. So, Mr. Chair, to wrap it up, I just have 3 documents that I'm requesting for approval. One is the letter to Mr. Peterson. The second one is the Brady Martz. And the third one was my letter to be excused for just next month. I submit it to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, before we ask a motion to approve the treasurer's report, do we have any comments from the community?
No. So there is a period of time in the veteran service member resolution that only allows for certain days to be covered. If my service obligation exceeds those days, then I will not be receiving pay. So it is a annual training requirements are obligatory, meaning it's a requirement. It's not a volunteer, and it's not a deployment as well. It's a training. It's called annual training. It is not a mobilization. Well, right now, the letter states that I'll be gone for, what is it, 40 days, okay? And so I'm only covered for 14 days out of that 40. Yes, so that's why the resolution was written in the way that it was. So we have service members throughout our organization that do these annual training requirements. The last time I went on an annual training requirement, I deferred
by Alan, second by Ray. All in favor? Motion carries. Next up is the letter to Sandy, or to Colin Peterson pertaining to Sandy Lake, Mississippi Band of Mississippi Chippewas. Motion? Motion by Ray, second. Second by Umsey, all in favor? Motion carried. The last one is on Alan's leave, training, be gone for 40 days. Give a motion. To be excused from our council for 40 days.
Yeah, so as I stated, the CFO will continue to do the finances, and then the record keeping, that'll be handled by the executive coordinator. So they already do those functions right now, I just oversee them. And so the chairman just mentioned that UMSI would be able to oversee their activity to make sure it's actually happening. And if there's signature requests, as I stated, I'll have a secure device that's being issued to me to sign overseas. Yep.
All right, we have a motion by Umsey, that motion, that second by Ray, all in favor? Motion carried. Okay, next up is District 1 update.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all here. Our homeless program has been working out pretty good. We haven't really had no problems at the hotel. They have been helping quite a few, getting into treatment, getting into homes. So our homeless program for just starting out is beginning to shape up and look a little better. A lot of them that are coming in are taking the wraparound services. I know I just had one yesterday get a hold of me. She was very proud of the fact that she's going to get the help that she needs. Been pretty busy. Next week I go out to testify in front of the Senate Committee for our energy. But the bad thing is I only get 5 minutes out there, so I guess I got to talk pretty fast and be very demanding with them. But like I said, like Alan said, we do got what is it called? Sorry, I haven't been feeling too good these last few days here. I've been sick. But anyway, we do work very good with our congressional people, our senators, which is a very good feeling to know that we got the backing of the senators and the congressmen. We were out in Washington there and met with a lot of our senators, and just last week, the chairman, myself, and District 3 were down and met with a lot of our senators and congressmen right in the cities, and just updating them on what we're up to on our own reservation and seeing what we can find out from them and, earn that respect of them. But also to let them know that in order to earn our respect, they have to respect us also. And I'm sure we're working out pretty good on that. Otherwise, District 1 is moving right along. I know the last meeting we had, District 2 come in their community council, and they're a very active council. I hope to see that our council is going to start making those moves also. And because they do a lot of things. They put on a lot of different things that take place. They're kind of a role model. So I really appreciate that, because this is what our councils are for, our committee councils, to set up things in the community and do this. I know I've gotten a lot of good remarks about their boxing. They put on a big screen for boxing and whatnot, the fights that come up. A lot of good comments on that, and we're looking at doing that up in District 1 right now. But otherwise, things have been going pretty good. So, and I do appreciate you all being here today, and be good and enjoy your weekend.
Well, good morning. I want to thank all of you for making it here, And I'd like to thank, for our councils, our three, for District 2, really been doing a great job, and I want to thank them. And they're really moving quite along, really fast. One thing in District 1 is that we're utilizing that Bagley Hotel for homeless. We have a terrible problem with homelessness here. As you know, you probably put up, each family, it's hard for them to understand, homelessness without sleeping on the streets or whatever in Minneapolis, how it's going. And I'm really excited that we got to open up, for a heating spot. So far, we're down in Minneapolis. I think we have a lot of work we have to do, a lot of starting we have to do for our homeless, our people. Our condition of our homes are in rough shape. We don't have enough to service our people. So I think that's what I'm working on. Number one, this is the homelessness on this reservation. I've gone to meetings, and I don't know if it's a slip of the tongue or what, but Minneapolis, I'm glad to hear that, a lot of people do support us. We really are really making a headway. So I'm proud of that. But when you have people saying that they're going to circle the wagons, come up with something, and I said, what? Circle the wagons? But this is the kind of response I think I know that they're doing, that they're having the races. So these are some of the things that we're fighting, and I really do appreciate you all being here. It's important. It seems like you're running to meetings just steady all the time. And later on in the day, I do want to bring up Head Start. I hope I don't see it on the agenda right now, but I do have some questions I have for Head Start. I'm really proud of them. I'm proud of our program that we have for our children. I'd like to give it over to District 3 here, but thank you.
Thanks, Scott, for your report. Hello, everyone. Everyone knows who I am. Going back to what the chairman spoke about, last month was a very busy month for us. We were out in DC talking energy, and we had some meetings also with Minnesota Gas Company, trying to get some natural gas moved in here to the reservation. It's already in Monoma now, but it could save a lot of dollars if we get that to the communities here. We had some discussion on that. And then a week or so, we were down in St. Paul, went to the Capitol down there and talked to some of the big shots down there. And I've been pushing for this. I'm trying to get some of this White Earth State Forest land back to White Earth. And I've been working on it for several months now. And last week, I finally got a map from them down there, and they only sent me Clearwater counties. And I emailed them back and told them that we need I want to look at all the White Earth State Forests within Becker County and Monoma County also. So I haven't heard back from them yet, but the way it sounds, they're looking at that for us. So hopefully that turns out for us. Other than that, we've been like I said, we've been busier than heck, and like I do at all my monthly meetings, I'd like to take a moment of silence for all of our community members we've lost this last month. Rich. Yes. Okay, Bill, I will see to it that gets taken care of for sure. I'll do it myself if I have to.
Rich. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Next up is division reports. I'm not sure if we have any division directors who are going to report, but I know that Treasurer Roy wanted the medical marijuana Gordy to come up and do a little presentation, and then we'll go into, I know Chris Jordan wanted to do his presentation. He'll be up next because he is on a timeline, so. But we'll give Gordy a few minutes to talk about some of his,
Thank you, guys. Thank you, chiefs. Well, I decided not to read off some kind of paper. I just stutter and stumble. But in regarding this medical marijuana issue, yesterday I was so glad to see something on paper. It is on paper, which means if it's passed through the resolutions, we can progress to the medical marijuana to and profits and just a general help for the Native American people. There won't be any laws changed. We will be following Minnesota all the way down the lines to where it comes to where we have to alter it to suit our people for their needs, their pains, and they want to work it into their medical regimen. But people should have that option of either taking a pill or going and lighting up a joint. It is no longer getting loaded. It is now getting medicated. It's a big difference in how you look at it. I myself am fighting cancer, and I know a lot of people are. And just a few alterations from the state rules and regulations would really benefit the people on the reservation. Like I said, the opiate addiction, this would be another path off instead of going on to another pill to come off the hard drugs. There should be a balance in there, a large house where someone could go and have a smoke break. There should be avenues that people can get to it for their own needs. It's not for everybody. And it's not expecting everybody to jump on the wagon. There is questions on everything. But if you watch TV commercials, there are more side effects than getting you well. And whereas this, you know what you're getting. You know what you're putting into your body. And you don't have to use it if you don't want to smoke it or whatever. There's other ways to ingest it. There's edibles, there's drops, there's pills. You don't have to smoke it, but I suggest people with pains, anxiety, stress, sleep issues, cancer issues, to look into this and keep an open mind. the profits that come with an adventure like this is not really something you can just guesstimate right now because of the people that need it, that are not coming forward. They're getting it on the street, or they can't use Minnesota medical because it's not getting their needs, what they need in their body. So I just advocate for medical marijuana. Give it a try. If you don't want to use it, don't make it harder for other members to get it. It is something we could use, and the potential is pretty much unlimited. It's how we want to do it. We can make it as simple as we want, we can make it as hard as we want, whatever. But I'm just advocating for the vote for yes on medical marijuana reservation for the cancer patients and for the people that just need pain relief, stress relief, just relief. No longer getting out getting medicated. Vote yes. Thank you. Thank you, Council.
Rich Gord, thank you. And those are things, conversations that we've talked about too recently about some of the marijuana and hemp, and I know we're gonna have a presentation today on hemp. But yeah, I mean, the state of Minnesota is probably about 2 years away from legalizing it, so I'm not sure, even at the federal level, I know it might even be closer than that, so we'll find out after the elections this fall what they're gonna do with whoever who gets the presidency to get Democratic, and hopefully something positive changes out there, so, and I know that we discussed at this table many times about medical marijuana and green jobs and whatnot, so we're aware of a lot of this stuff too, so, good. I know Chris is here, I know he's pressed for time, he has to head out Maja, so if he wants to come up and talk about his technology center, so.
Bonjour, everybody, members, council. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate getting moved up. Yeah, that one right there. My name is Chris Jordan. I'm from the Red Lake Nation. I'm Bear Clan. And I got a little presentation here on the upcoming North American Indigenous Games, which are going to be held up in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Not sure if anybody quite knows where that is, but it's quite the journey. And a little bit about myself. Father, I'm also the chairman of the Red Lake Board. I work as a counselor in the elementary school for the past 15 years, and I've also been coaching junior high basketball back in Red Lake for the last 15 years. When I'm not doing that, I also do elementary football, lacrosse, baseball, and basketball. And I know we here a few times that we were recently we got trounced by the mighty Thunderbirds over in Mahnomen. So you guys got some good athletes this way. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with the games, but they're really huge. And prior to 2017, I had no experience with the games. I didn't play in the games in the past, but I got asked to organize the basketball portion. And what ended up happening was the person in the position I am in now, the leadership position, dropped out, and they wanted Team Minnesota to pull back. But I knew, I felt that our teams were too talented. So long story short, I got to go ahead to do it. We pulled it off. We brought 5 teams up to Toronto in 2017, and we brought back 4 medals. We brought back a gold, a silver, and 2 bronze, which was really impressive. So the games, they're huge. Like I said, there are over 5,000 participants from across North America will compete in sports. The games will create a space to embrace culture while making sport and memorable experiences. The kids that went up there last time had an amazing experience up in Toronto, and prior to that, when I speak to former athletes, they kind of their eyes, you can see in their eyes how cool of a experience this is. There's more than just games, though. There's a cultural and cultural village where there's traditional games going on when our athletes aren't participating. Up in Halifax, it's really taking off right now as the games are this July. So they're recruiting volunteers up there. It's the largest sport event in their history, and the Micmac culture is pretty amazing. If you think about the history there and where they're at, they're one of the first people who kind of had to deal with the invasion that came over. So they're proud to share that off. The games are more than just games. Like I said, there's a cultural aspect to it, and our kids getting to meet kids from all across. Turtle Island is a pretty powerful experience. We played this team from Nunavut, and I don't know if you know where that's from, but it's way up above the Arctic Circle. So there's a little map. You can see where Halifax is at. I've never been there. Prior to last month, we had a meeting up there. It's a pretty beautiful area, but as you can see, it's quite the distance, and that's kind of what I'm going to be getting at here shortly. So it's not bad of a flight. It's a super long drive. We're hoping we can get all of our athletes up there. Here's a breakdown by the region. You can kind of see how big these games are. You can see how we've grown. We had about 8 crew, but with that comes kind of pains, of getting everybody up there. That's a long ways away. But you can see how these Canadian tribes are in the middle. They're really big on these games. British Columbia, 520 athletes they're bringing. They charter 5 jets at a cost of $1.7 million. So we got 1,154 coming from the U.S., 3,900 from across Canada for a total of 5,000 right now. But we are going to hit that max, they said, of 5,250 athletes. The opening ceremonies are going to be held here. It's quite the spectacle. Last time the kids really enjoyed it. They really motivate these kids with bringing in these performers. Some of you might know Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas. He really got things going up there. As well as they're expecting 600 chiefs from the First Nations all across Canada are going to be here. So it's, like I said, you imagine 5,000 kids in there, and then you got all the some parents and fans and different high-level government people as well will be there. So it's a really big thing. They equate it to the Olympics for Native youth. Our kids will be staying in dorms, and they'll be fed right there. There's no, they don't have to bring money to buy food. There was a fee paid of $230 that guarantees them their lodging and their meals while they're up at the game. So that's the biggest cost. I organize trips across the nation for youth from back in Red Lake, and that's usually our biggest cost. So we knocked that out of the way. Again, there's a cultural village, so when our kids aren't playing, there's going to be concerts going on here, different people performing, as well as an arm wrestling contest. I guess arm wrestling is really huge up in Canada and I guess overseas. So they added that in there as one of the non-traditional games. So I don't know if Mike wants to come up there and. So again, there's more. It's bigger than the games. The Halifax waterfront is very close to where the games will be played. It's right there down on the ocean. I didn't get to see it. It was winter, when we're up there. But so our kids are going to be doing more than just playing in these games. I just threw this on there because in an event something happens to one of our kids up there, the people who are put together the medical services side of things have experience with the Olympic Games. So our kids are going to be well taken care of in the event something happens. A little bit about our logo. They asked us if we wanted to use the Minnesota flag, and if anybody has ever seen the state of Minnesota flag. we said, no way. So we developed up our own logo here that we'll use. We're actually going to change the Minnesota to the Dakota, the original spelling. And those are some of the medals that we brought home last time. I'm super proud of our kids. A little bit about our group, 185. Leech Lake has the biggest representation. There's Red Lake, Fond du Lac, Mille Lacs, Bois Forte, Lower Sioux, and the White Earth Nations will all be represented up there. Basketball, volleyball, golf, athletics is track and field. We have a swimmer, baseball, and wrestling. I know White Earth will be represented in basketball. You got volleyball players, and you got a wrestler from over here. The thing about us is coaches and all of our chaperones, we're all volunteers. Nobody gets paid to do this. We have no operating revenue, our continuing funding source. I wasn't sure how Team Minnesota is organized before, if anybody in the room has experience with it, but one thing they said was all the tribes used to pitch in and give the money to make this event happen for our kids. I'm not sure if you recognize any names on there. This is our 14U basketball team. I didn't quite get everybody's tribal affiliation yet for every team. But I did coordinate the tryouts, and I got to witness the tryouts, and I was super impressed. Again, I think we're going to go up there, and I believe we're going to do all right based on the talent level that I've seen amongst our indigenous kids here in the state of Minnesota. Again, our coaches all have experience coaching, and again, we're all volunteers. 16U boys basketball, 19U girls basketball is super talented. A lot of these girls, I believe, are going to be going to a state tournament, whether it's Leech Lake or Red Lake. Some of our basketball teams, some of these guys had made the games before. A lot of these players have been to state. We got some D1 players on this list. Here's our volleyball list. I know, and I believe I think there's a couple White Earth on here. Golf, some super talented golfers made it to the state tournament. Wrestling, I believe Jack is from White Earth, so we're super excited. We didn't have this last time. Like I said, we got a couple guys going to run track and field for us. This swimmer, junior Olympic athlete, been all over the country, winning medals. So we're super excited. Now I believe here, because there's only a few athletes that the parents themselves covered that registration fee. This is our next biggest cost, and again, that fee, so the kids will be lodged up there in the dorm and fed. $23,000 plus lodging for a couple drivers and toll fees for 49 people to get up there on the Bemidji bus lines. Right now, the Red Lake Nation has contributed $25,000. Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe matched that. Lower Sioux, I went and met with them. They're going to cover their athletes' flights. So what my goal, because of that really long drive, is I've got a quote for $150,000 for a chartered jet for 180 people from Minneapolis to Halifax. And they said that was a 3-hour direct flight. The advantage to that is all of our kids will be together, and we'll go up there. We bypass a lot of the traditional airport headaches if you've ever flown. And it's quite the experience, and it's how the bigger teams do it. They highly recommend it, so we don't have kids on multiple flights. But again, that's a pretty decent price tag. It breaks down to about 800 and some a piece, and that should cover just about everybody. Myself and another guy, we got to be up there a couple days early, so we'll already be up there. The gyms are super nice. They're all at universities and various schools up there. We got a little tour of these things. Little picture from before. This team actually won the gold medal. It's a huge experience for these kids. After that game, they were interviewed by media. It felt super cool. Here's that gold medal team. We faced British Columbia in this game, and I had the pleasure of coaching this one, and it was one of the most tense experiences in all my 15 years of coaching. This team right here was a 16U team. They came back from down 23. This kid hit 2 free throws with 2-3 seconds left. So it was quite the experience. You know, they ended up winning the bronze medal. So that's just a quick overview of what we got. And again, I'm coming here hoping you guys could either match what Red Lake and Mille Lacs have contributed, or we can talk about any other way that you want to help out, because I'm really excited, and I really want to make this happen after what I seen at the last games in 2017 and how huge they were. You know, and in the experience that we had, although they were in Toronto, it was a little bit shorter, so, and we had less kids, so we were able to drive different people. And how that one worked was Leech Lake used their program vans. Red Lake Schools donated a vehicle that I drove some kids up with. Prairie Island rented a vehicle for another vehicle for the other team to get up there with. So it was kind of it was a super good experience, you know, for our youth. And for many kids, this is about, you can really only get this about one time, the way the ages are broken down. If you're really lucky, you know, you can hit it twice, like some of these kids are able to participate again. And it's the age groups are 14, 16, and 19 for most sports. Golf has a 17-year-old division. So I guess with that, I hope I gave a good presentation. I'll open it up to any Q&As that you guys might have as a council, community. Sure. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I had the pleasure of listening to him as a high school student many years ago. But no, there hasn't been. You know, like I said, we have no funds. You know, we have no budget. You know, and I know you got to pay those guys and at least travel. You know, to bring them up. But they have. So I know they. You know, I'm not involved with the overall organizing of the games, but you know that original list. There's quite a few teams from around the states. You know, and then there's every province and other territories are represented out of Canada. I know they are bringing in. There's a call out, you know, to bring in people, you know, that kind of do that opening ceremony and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a great idea. Sure. Yeah, you know, that's kind of come up from a couple people. There hasn't been any talk from the host society, they call it, of canceling any, you know, the event or anything like that. But Red Lake brought it up because that's why they kicked in so much, and I didn't ask them for that much. They offered that, and they said, you know, you'd bypass a lot of the stuff, you know, in hotels. Because when I went up there, I sat next to a guy sneezing all over the place next to me, and sure enough, you know, I come back and get coughing around for a couple weeks. So yeah, maybe, yeah. Personally, you know, I try not to live in a fearful state. You know, that's just the way I live. You know, I mean, we've overcome a lot. You know, as people. Yes, sir, ma'am. July 12th through the 19th, and I forget how many thousands of miles away it is, but it's for sure up there. It's a long ways, and I know Leech Lake, because of their amount, they're still thinking of driving. This one says not 1,936 miles from kind of the center of Minnesota. Looks like the route I think we would go when we went up to Toronto. That's the way we took there through Sault Ste. Marie over into Toronto. 1900. Yeah, driving. Yeah, so it's a long ways. You can't really get much further east, on this continent than where Halifax is. One of the choices, one of the options was Winnipeg. I really wish we could have got that one because we just could have easily drove up to that one. But yeah, yes, sir. The bus line, they said they could wait as far as May, but for the flight, he's already saying we're stretching it right now. So I have also went to I put a request to Fond du Lac with the same request, and again Lower Sioux, and Leech Lake, but Leech Lake thinks they're just going to take a bunch of vans again and they're going to drive their 60 some athletes up there. So I said that's what you want to do, Any other questions? Comments?
Rich, and I know the council's been kind of talking a little bit about this too, and some of the stuff that how I look at it is, of course, it pertains to our kids and our athletes, and as parents and grandparents that we've always supported our children, and getting into sports, we've always thought that was a good plan to keep them away from the negative stuff that's out there. So, I mean, when it comes to, I guess I'm speaking on behalf of myself as chairman, but the rest of the council here, I've always been supportive of sports. I played sports when I was a kid, so supporting. I think to get our kids to experience, to get off the res and to look at different parts of the world and look at the Atlantic Ocean, I think that would be a very good positive experience for our kids that will be representing us on this team, and talking to Sam, and I know we talk about the coronavirus a lot lately, it's all over the news now, and, these are things that I think with the coordinators and the staff that's working along with us would be aware of this too, and I think the safety and the risk issues would be there as soon as the trip gets closer and closer, so, I think it's something positive, so. And I'm not sure how I feel, and I'm not sure how much, council's looking at or what they're gonna talk about. And I'll hand it down to each of us and see what they have to say about it too, so. But I'm in favor of helping out the kids, so.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you. That's really good presentation. And I know, as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to see us donate also to the kids, because I'm really proud of them, our kids. But I think you're right.
At this program, I was a part of one that went up to British Columbia. But back then, we were kind of just pushed aside from the rest of the team Minnesota, and we took our own bus, took our own kids up there, and pretty much paid for everything for our own kids because they more or less just pushed us aside. The rest of Team Minnesota, they all flew up, and we went by bus up there. And but I know it's a good experience for all students, and I really encourage them to go for it because the kids had a good learning experience up there, and a few of them did get homesick, which is expected, but otherwise they did a pretty good job up there, and I totally agree with it, but I would like to sit down and discuss this more as to how much you're looking for and what we can help out with.
Very good, Chris. Yeah, we'll get back to you real soon. Okay, you're good. Okay, we'll go on a little break here, so you're good.